Hey everyone, welcome, welcome. We'll get started in just a few moments. While we're waiting for to get started, if y'all don't mind, just type in your high school graduation year in the chat, and also to drop any questions that you might have in the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to answer any of those questions and also to figure out who to tailor the presentation to. All right, 2027, 2026. Exciting. Folks are going to be doing their college applications really soon. All right. 2029. Okay. People getting started early. That's amazing. All right. I'm sure this is going to be very useful then, especially for the middle school students, because I'm sure y'all might be thinking about what majors to look into. And it's always good to plan early as well. All right, we'll get started in one more minute. All right, welcome everyone. Today's webinar is about how to pick your major and college in high school. This is presented by EagleLock and formerly known as College Admission Secrets. So if y'all haven't met me already, I'm Coach Victor with College Admission Secrets and EagleLock. For myself, I used to be a former UC Berkeley admissions outreach coordinator and instructor. I used to go out to different high schools, used to promote like what is it takes in order to get into college, and also I taught a class about how to get into graduate school as well. Fun fact, I was also a full ride UC Berkeley scholar for undergrad and graduate school. So in a future session, I'm actually going to be talking about how is it that I was able to get a full ride to these scholarships and how to write some amazing scholarship essays. So future topic if y'all are interested about attending for that. And also in terms of my background, I used to work in K through 12 education policy, education technology, and also working currently as an admissions advisor. So that being said, you can trust the information I'm about to provide y'all and looking forward to be able to talk about today's topic. And so today, what we're going to be covering is to talk about the differences between careers and majors and how is that you can kind of understand what is it that you might want to do. If you're a student right now, it's totally understandable if you don't know what is it that you want to do, because I mean, if you're only 14, 15, 16, or 17, I mean, no one really knows during that time what is it that you want to do. So that's why we're here to help. Secondly, we'll teach you about how to determine your major and what are some kind of strategies to be able to figure it out, and also how to pick colleges for the major that would be a best fit for yourself. Okay, so if you're a junior right now, very exciting time. You're probably choosing which colleges to apply to, and at the very end, we'll be able to give you a strategy on how to choose which colleges to apply to. Lastly, in terms of housekeeping, please share your high school graduation year in the chat. I'm kind of curious about where are folks coming from right now. We have about 120 folks here. So would love to figure out how to tailor this curriculum for. I see that we have some juniors right now and also some eighth graders. So that's really exciting to see. And also throughout this entire time, if you do have any questions, please drop it in the Q&A box and we'll get to the very end. And also, as always, replay notes will be available within 48 hours. So I'll show you at the very end about how to access that. Okay, let's get started. So, pop quiz for everyone. All right. Uh, does your major determine what looks better for graduate school? All right. So, for example, if you were to major versus in a major in biology versus engineering, and you wanted to apply to medical school, would it make a difference? Yes or no? No guesses? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, I see one yes, one no. So we're at 50-50 right now. Depends. Okay, I like that answer too. Okay, so we have a yes, no, maybe, and a no. Okay. All right. So the answer is actually no. Okay. your major does not determine what looks better for grad school. So if you're planning to go to law school, you're planning to go to medical school, you're planning to go get your master's or anything of that sort, it does not matter, okay? Another question, does your major determine what specific job you get after college? So for example, if you were to get a computer science BS or a business BA, would it matter about would it help you get a specific job or not? Yes or no in the chat. Yes. Yes, but depends on major. Yes. Okay. All right. So I see a lot of yeses, but to people's surprise, the answer is actually no. Your major does not actually matter either. Okay. I'm going to talk about why that's the case, right? I know that's some kind of shocking news to everybody, but I just want to make folks aware that yes, it's important to determine what your major is, but also know that if you decide to go for the to a specific major, and you decide to change your career or change your kind of grad school pathway, it's okay. You're going to be okay. It doesn't mean that by choosing one major, you're stuck with it forever. Okay. And so let's talk about it. So first off, college careers and majors, right? So most people think that their major has to be related to their future career. The truth is, major does not have to directly relate to the career. We're going to look at specific examples for people who are working as lawyers on LinkedIn and what is it that we see. Okay. If you look here, right, you notice there's 6 different people with 6 different types of bachelor's degree. Starting from the top left, we have someone that is studying political science. In the second one, we have social sciences. Third, social welfare and public policy. At the bottom, political science and public policy. And there's also environmental science and also media studies. As you can see, it kind of runs over the gamut, right? And yes, sure, there might be people who tend to major in political science that ends up going to law school, or for medical school, there could be a case where a lot of people are studying biology or chemistry or some type of science and then ends up going to medical school. But at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter, okay? Because at least when it comes to graduate school, what they're looking for is the specific classes that you've taken. There are requirements that you have to take or courses that you need to take in order to be eligible to go into the next level of that particular school. But also, what it comes down to actually is the work experience, okay? And when it comes to even work experience itself and to be able to get a career, you can actually major in many different things. If you were here about 2 weeks ago, I did a course or a webinar about training how to break into tech or technical majors. And fun fact for myself, right? I used to be a product manager. I used to work in education technology, and I majored in social welfare with a double minor in public policy and education. Okay. And I was also presenting with my co-presenter, which was Coach Mina, who was an engineer. And as an engineer, she studied architecture. Okay. So what that means is that it doesn't actually, your major does not determine what your future is going to like look at specifically. All it kind of shows is what did you actually focus on or what did you actually study. So let's actually talk about like what is an actual major, okay? So first off, career is what you do, like what you're doing right now. So right now, for example, I'm a college admissions coach, right? And there's other people doing a lot of different types of occupation. It's what you do, okay? What you do doesn't necessarily have to relate to what you study. Your major is what you study and what you kind of specialize in. In today's world, you could probably study almost anything as a major and you still end up as whatever career as you want. If you're a parent right now, right, I'm sure you're probably working in some type of field. And if you were to ask the people around you, what is it that they majored in, it's more than likely going to be very different. Yes, at times, right, there tends to be a tendency where a lot of entry-level people tend to study very similar kinds of things. So for example, if you decide to go into engineering field, it's more than likely, yes, that a lot of people who are studying engineering or study some type of engineering go into the same entry-level job. But as you get older and in the workforce, your major starts mattering less and less because you accumulated more work experience. So know this, that your major kind of determines about what you study for and what you focus on. And yes, that preps you for certain types of jobs or certain types of careers. But that's just for the entry level kind of experience, because for entry level, right? Think of like the term of entry level jobs. It's just for those who are their first career or it's the first kind of job to ever get. And so what job would they be eligible for? It's basically what they studied for. But as you get older over time, your major starts mattering less and less because you've accumulated work experience. So as somebody who is an employer and as somebody who used to study workforce development, what I learned is that essentially a lot of the kind of hiring decisions is really based off of your work experience and also your kind of applicable like project experience as well. So even if you are an entry level person and you're trying to break into a whole totally different field, as long as you technically have the project based like knowledge or experience, then you're probably going to be eligible for that particular role because as an employer, all we care about is can you actually do the job, right? And just because you studied a particular major doesn't necessarily mean that you can actually do the job. Because for employers, and especially for those who are parents right here listening in, if you're an employer or you're a manager, you probably would be more inclined to hire somebody who has experience actually doing the job as opposed to someone who just studied the job, right? And so just know that in terms of your major or your career, they're two different unrelated things. And even though, or two different things, but they are somewhat related in that sense. Okay. So let's keep on going in terms of how to actually choose a major though. So when it comes to choosing a major, right? Uh, a lot of parents kind of ask us this question: what if my child doesn't know what they want to major in? Okay. So first off, right? If your child is like in their teenagers years, from 15 to 17-year-olds, uh, parents think about this when you were at that age a long time ago. Did you happen to know what your career would be at that particular age? Okay, just think about it for a moment. More than likely, not. All right. When I was 15 or 16 or 17, I thought I was going to be a teacher of some sort. I didn't know what I was going to really major in per se. But in most cases, teenagers don't really know what they actually want to major in or what they want to do in their career. And so we shouldn't be putting unrealistic expectations for our students then to really know what exactly they need to do. So I know today is really about to be able to understand how to pick a major. And so we'll talk about what is it that you can at least do in the moment to at least get yourself closer to that. But just know that if you're a student right now or you have a child, you don't necessarily need to know exactly what you want to major in at this very moment, and it's not going to dramatically impact your admissions decision. Okay. So let's get into it a little bit more. So when it comes to a major, right, it's something that you want to specialize in learning. It's about what particular skills you want to learn, what particular issues do you want to develop in-depth knowledge about. And so when it comes to the major, right, the question you want to ask yourself is, what are you most excited to learn about? Because if you're going to be studying this for 4 years, then you should hopefully be interested in it, or you would want to care about the thing that you want to learn more about. So when it comes to the specialized learning, right, technically the specialized learning can be applied to many different careers. So for example, if you were to study in like business administration, almost every single company, every single kind of employer needs some type of business administration knowledge in some type of way. So know that you can apply it in many different ways. Your major is what helps you understand what is the particular skill set that I want to learn and what do I want to apply it into what industry? Industry being like, for example, like medical, being in like technical or the tech world or in hospitality or some other kind of thing. So when it comes to trying to figure out your major, right, the best way to kind of understand it is kind of two parts. One is that you want to use your activities, and second, you want to use informational interviews to help you determine your major. Okay. And what do I mean by that? First off, let's start with activities. Okay. When it comes to activities, there are different levels of learning that can be done. So first, at the very top is of this pyramid is lecture. Okay, meaning that if you go to a class or you join a like I don't know a business administration class or a biology community college class or something, by going to a lecture that helps you learn, but it's at the most very surface level understanding. Because when it comes to lecturing, right, you're absorbing knowledge, but it's very at the surface level. Sure, you get to learn from people who have rigorously studied this particular field, but yet at the same time, it's not as effective to really help you understand, do I really like this? Because think of it this way. Imagine if you go to a lecture and you had the boringest like professor or lecturer like teaching you about this particular concept. If they're a boring like presenter and you think you might associate that particular subject that you're trying to learn from them is boring, right? And you don't want to do that. You don't want to associate the person that is teaching the particular subject to have a negative impact or a negative perspective on what is it that you about this particular major that you can consider. The second next level part is the reading part. The more that you read about it, that is a little bit more in depth, which is great. But yet at the same time, it's also you're reading it from a theoretical like kind of lens. When you're reading about a particular subject or reading about a some subject matter knowledge, it is still very theoretical and you're like learning about it, but you're not actually doing it. Okay. So I'm just gonna kind of fast forward and going down to towards the very bottom, which is the most important thing or the most effective way to be able to learn it is like learning by doing and immediately using it after you learn it. And what I mean by that is this is what college admissions is all about, right? We talk about the three A's: your application, your academics, and your activities. The reason why activities is more important than academics is because students should be doing things that relate to what they want to learn or what they want to do in the future. Because think of it this way, if you're applying to college, right? And you say that I want to go to college and I want to apply to I want to learn, I don't know, computer science. And the question I have as a admissions reader is how do you really know that you want to study computer science, right? Like, sure, you might have a few AP computer science courses. Sure, you might be really good at math, but how do you know if you really want to do it? Because if all you're learning is just through lecture and just through academics, then that tells me you're not taking initiative to really learn more, whether if this is the particular field you really want to do. To really tell if you really want to do it, you got to actually apply what you're learning. So, for example, if you're interested in computer science, then some example activities that you could do is build your own program, build your own website, work for an internship, do something that relates to coding, right? Do something with that skill that you're planning on learning. And the goal here is you don't need to wait till college to actually know if you want to do this particular thing or if you want to learn this thing. You are already doing it right now as a student. And so many families and students will probably ask me like, oh, but I don't know like what I can do about it. Or like, I want to study architecture, but I don't know what is it that I can do to really start like learning about architecture. Well, there's an easy way to do it. Like, it sounds kind of uh, uh, I don't know what to say. Like, it sounds very basic, but honestly, you just Google it, right? Google what is it that you can do to be able to participate in activities that relate to your field. So if you're interested in architecture, maybe the first thing you do is go to a museum about architecture, learn about it, right? Visualize it, right? That's a third level right here on audio visual. Go to it and try to be able to witness it and then be able to try to learn, is there something that you can do that is age appropriate for you or your child? Because there are tons of internships, tons of activities, tons of summer activities that you can do to get more exposed to a particular field. So really the answer here is not necessarily to go in just for the sake of understanding, oh, do I want to major in this? The point about doing this is, am I actually interested? Am I actually invested in this particular subject? Because if I see that I am enjoying myself doing this programming online and I'm doing this project and I really enjoy it, then that seems like it's a good kind of track record that I should probably study something maybe along this field. I know if I were to be programmed something and I learned, hey, I really enjoyed it, then that takes me to the next level of like, okay, then I might really enjoy getting to the next level of how to do this at a more higher in-depth level to be able to learn more. So that's why activities is super important on the college admissions process. It's more important than the academics because you are doing things that don't rely on the school to do it for you, right? If all you're going to do is get straight A's and just do all the classes possible and you apply with zero activities, then you're not going to get into your schools, just quite frankly. Because if you really wanted to just study all day and go through lectures and activities, then just take a whole bunch of community college courses. You don't necessarily need to go to university, okay? So that's the best way to kind of experience it just by participating in activities. And if you have a hard time figuring out what activities to participate in, then let's go to the next step, which is informational interviews. So if you've already been part of some of my webinars before, one of the major things I always emphasize is to network, to learn how to talk to people, because talking to people is so much quicker than going to a whole lecture. Think of it this way, is that if you want to learn about business and whether if business is something that you want to do, there's two things that you can do, okay? One, you can go register for a community college class and try to be able to learn a whole semester about business administration. That's cool, right? That works too. Or how about this? Just talk to a friend or family who study business or doing business and just have a 30-minute chat with them. You'll learn so much more in that 30 minutes rather than a whole lecture. the whole point, right, about this whole networking and informational interviews is that you're learning in shorter amount of sprints. Okay. And sorry, I forgot to define what an informational interview is, which is essentially instead of you interviewing for a job, you're interviewing somebody else to learn more about them, about their interests, about their field, about what they do. Okay. And the goal for you to be a successful like human being or like a professional in the world or a student is to reduce the amount of gap to learning. So the quicker that you learn, right? And the quicker it is going to be for you to be able to figure out what your major is. And that's the thing is that a lot of people think that they need to go through a whole semester's worth of content or knowledge to be able to learn, when in reality, you can learn it in 30 minutes. Okay. So a lot of people are saying, like, oh, there's just so much information out there that I just don't know what is it to grasp onto. I don't know what is it to learn, or I don't know where to focus on. It's just too overwhelming. Well, yes, it is going to be overwhelming. And that's the point. It's the point is to be exposed to as many different things as possible and figure out what to latch onto. And the best way to kind of just figure it out is just learn more as much as you can. And if you have one conversation for 30 minutes and you learn, hey, this is something I don't want to do, great. You put that to the side and you move on to the next thing, right? So by being able to do more learning on a quicker pace, you're able to exclude a lot of the information or omit a lot of the information that is no longer relevant to you. Okay. And so the people to talk to, right, are friends and family, right? That's the easiest place to start. If you are a student or you have a child that is trying to consider a particular major, have them talk to somebody, or you go talk to somebody that you know in your family or friends that are already studying this major. And they will be able to learn within those 30 minutes whether it's something that they might want to do. And it's okay if they are still questioning it or they're still confused, because that's good. That's good information. That's feedback. Okay. The next part is to talk to students and alumni, which is the best kind of case here because they're already studying the actual major or that's studying the actual field. You want to learn from the experiences of the people who are studying that thing so that you can learn if that will relate to your own interests. And lastly, very important thing, talking to employers, okay? If you are very interested about your career like trajectory and what is it that you want to do, something that you would want to consider is what does the market, and what I mean by market is like, what is the employer market? What are they looking for? What is it that they like, for example, in the tech field, right? AI technology is uh, the golden standard now. It is so common now in so many job postings that AI technology is a requirement. And so one of those things is that you can ask them like, hey, what do you recommend for me to learn in college in order to be effective in this like next like economy? And they'll probably say like AI technology, yes, but how can you learn AI technology? There's computer science, there's cognitive science, there's informational science, there's data science. There's tons of different types of things that you can learn that relate to AI technology. And so the next level question comes after that is, okay, what specific skill set do I need to learn to be able to be effective in that particular field? So, for example, like information science, you might be trying to create the machine learning models or something of that sort, right? Data science, you're analyzing and you are collecting the insights from your models. For computer science, you're applying those models to like an application, for example. And if those words not make sense to you, right? That's understandable, but that also shows that you need to do more learning. And frankly, what you're learning in school is not enough to be able to help you for career. Okay. The best way to learn about what to do for your career is to talk to people who are actually working in the field, not necessarily people who are in academics. So on this left right here, there is like a kind of a diagram in terms of first, second, third degree connections regarding LinkedIn. And when it comes to LinkedIn, right, if you're a high school student, I highly encourage you to already start a LinkedIn. For a lot of students I've already worked with, I encourage them to even start it as early as ninth grade. And the reason for that is because they need to start building a network to learn about who is it that they can learn from. Your first degree connections are people that you already know. These are typically like friends or family. Your second degree connections are who your friends and family know that you can be connected to. And third degree is where your friends or family connection are connected to to somebody else that you can learn from. The goal here, right, is to learn from as many different people as you can. And most high school students don't have a strong network right now. They probably know very little people. The only people you probably know is like your actual high school friends or peers. And that's not enough to really validate whether if that's the if that's not really enough to validate whether what majors that I should actually go into because you just haven't met the people who can give you that information. So I'll take this. So personal example for me, right, is that I wish that I networked a lot more in high school because I studied social welfare with a double minor in public policy and education. Looking back on things, right, like yes, I was able to still work in tech and do many different jobs. But the thing is, I did wish that I could major in computer science, but I never knew about it because I didn't have friends or family or connections that really introduced me to computer science. And the reason why I say that is because when I started working in the workforce, I started realizing like, oh my God, all these like particular skill sets in coding would have been so helpful for me to do my job. But how would I have supposed to know? How would I have known if unless I actually talked to people? So the thing is like we have to adopt the mindset that we're lifelong learners. We're always going to be learning more information. And the thing is, if you are in high school right now, you constantly have to learn, not just in school, but you have to learn about what's outside there in the world, right? What is actually careers out there that you might want to consider? What is it that you are most interested in? What particular fields that you could work in? And to get this to be clear, you don't have to make a decision right here and now. You just have to understand what is it that you're gravitating towards. Okay. It's easier to answer what am I gravitating towards, what am I interested in, as opposed to saying, what major do I want to be in, what particular career do I want to be in, because those questions are always going to change over time. Okay. And so you have to understand, try to connect with people outside of your inner circle so that way you can learn more. All right. So we talked about activities, we talked about informational interviews. And so now when it comes to majors, right, I was emphasizing a lot, you don't have to choose your specific major. And if you already had if you're already a part of our coaching families, you already know this. But essentially, there are three pathways to all majors that they fall under. The first pathway is engineering and computer science. Second pathway is STEM and business. And third is everything else. Okay. What this means is you just need to understand what pathway that you want to go into. It doesn't really quite matter the difference between do you want to study aerospace engineering? Do you want to study electrical engineering? Do you want to study like like nuclear engineering? Like those things, right? They're all under the same like kind of umbrella, which is the engineering computer science track. And when it comes to admissions, we don't necessarily care too much about the specific major. We care about the pathway that they're going to be applying to. Because think of it this way, the engineering and computer science classes and activities that are required to be able to get into these majors, they're all the same. Meaning that like just because you are interested or comparing between two engineering types of degrees, the ways to prepare for that for the admissions process is all the same. And so it's okay to just think about what pathway do I fall under? Do I see myself going down the engineering and computer science pathway? Do I see myself going to STEM and business pathway? Or do I go into everything else? As long as you're thinking about these three pathways or what we call overlays, this will tell us as the readers about what we'll be looking for. So let's talk more about like what exactly does that mean? So when it comes to about majors and how admissions works is that most UC campuses, and I'm talking about UC specifically just because, and this also applies to other colleges as well, actually, that your major doesn't actually play a big role in terms of what college your major falls under. So, for example, at UC Berkeley, we have a college called College of Letters and Science. And within the College of Letters and Science, there is a major on anthropology, chemistry, economics, geography, sociology. Like all these majors fall into the same college. And this college is what decides the admissions to like all the students for all the students. So meaning that regardless if you're in any of these majors, they're all going to be treated the same. So as long as you think about which pathway that you want to go for, then all your requirements, all the things that you could do to prepare for it will be the same. Okay. So that being said, also when it comes to the future career, yeah, so most students won't have an idea about what they want to do in the future, and that's okay, right? You generally have somewhat of an idea, maybe it's like a doctor, lawyer, engineer, something of that sort, but they all tend to generally fall around the same pathway as well. So this also relates to the overlays. If you wanted to, you could take a quiz where you can kind of get a better sense of what your interests are. So there's like learningstylequiz.com. If you look up Big Future Career Quiz, you can also get that as well. And just to be warning you, though, with a grain of salt, that the results of this shouldn't be a deterministic factor of like saying like you need to do this or you should be doing this. This is just feedback, all right? These quizzes, these online things, I wish it was so easy to just like take this one quiz and then you figure out what exactly you want to do for the rest of your life, okay? Life doesn't work that way. So these treat these quizzes or treat these kinds of things as just feedback for information, very similar to the informational interviews that we talked about. Okay. All right. So now that we talked about like how the focus should really be about your pathways and not your majors, and if you wanted to identify a specific major, the best way to kind of figure that out is through the informational interviews and activities. Okay. So let's go to the next part, which is how to pick the right college for your major. So generally speaking, right, this is how people would kind of do it. They'll go on Google and they look up the best colleges for X major. I'm sure many people here are probably guilty of doing that. And I will warn you that this is probably one of the worst ways to possibly do that because there's so many factors to it. And also, statistically speaking, 80% of college students switch their majors at least once during their academic careers. So that being said, right, it's more important to get the right college fit as opposed to the right college for your major, because there are so many factors that relate to your education that it's not just about trying to have the best, like, I don't know, for example, electric engineering degree for whatever college that you go to. So let's break it down in terms of why this is important to consider. First off, when it comes to colleges, right, generally speaking, for a 4-year degree, right, you're going to have your first 2 years, which is really focused on your general education requirements and your prerequisites. And then later on in year 3 and 4, that's when you start having specific major requirements and electives. So usually the first 2 years, right, people are taking like generally around the same classes. They're taking general education classes. And later on, people are likely to switch majors before their 3rd year. And so just know that even if you go in with an intended major in mind, right, it's possible that you might change it by the time you hit year 3, and that's okay. So when it comes to thinking about the right colleges, though, let's compare about the different options that you might have. So I'm going to use University of California as like examples, and this can also apply to other states as well. But generally speaking, there's 2 types of public universities. There are research-based and teaching-focused universities. For research-based, they tend to have larger class sizes, like 200, 300. I think the biggest class I had was about 400 people lecture. And you would have smaller discussion sections. So you might have like a 400 people class, and then you break out into smaller discussion sections of like 20 to 30 students. And within those 20 to 30 students, you might have a graduate student instructor who teaches about the particular concepts in a class setting. For research-based institutions, it kind of says in the name, they're really emphasizing on the research and theoretical learning. And also, majority of the campus life is residential campuses, meaning that students will typically stay in dorms. They might go out and live out there in the area. And so it's expected to have like more of like a student life kind of campus focus. While in the alternative is a teaching focused university. So these are CSUs or California State Universities, or in Texas, they're called Texas State Universities as well. So these tend to be smaller class sizes with more direct contact with faculty, meaning that instead of 200, 300, there might be like less than 100 students in a particular class. And they're really focused on the practicality of implementing what you're learning to your actual career. So they're more career focused rather than the UCs or University of Texas, where it's more on the theoretical side. So if you're more like the practical hands-on knowledge, then maybe the California State Universities are typically better for you. And also, a lot of these campuses are considered like commuter campuses, meaning that a lot of students are maybe from the local area and they are just commuting from home, and they're not living on campus in dorms or anything of that sort. So this applies to many of the other states as well. So the difference between public and privates, though, is that when private universities, they do have smaller class sizes, they do have strong alumni network connections. And so usually after you graduate, you have access to a private network of like a job. Like, for example, you might have like a internal job portal that only Stanford students have access to, or like it's easier to make like connections in that case. And also these private universities have a specific mission or focus where they might be liberal arts, religious affiliation, or some type of particular mission embedded in their statement. Also, they have more flexibility in the curriculum and general education requirements. They typically have like more different tracks of majors that you can choose and that you can kind of specialize in. And so in that way, when you first enter in, you can probably like choose your specialty that you want to focus in. And lastly, there's more financial aid-based opportunities that are need-based and merit-based. And so even though it might seem more expensive to go to a private university, typically they do offer a lot of, especially if you're low income of that sort, they typically offer a lot more needs-based scholarships to make it more affordable. So that's also a consideration as well. So to break down the cost a bit, right? Uh, the CSUs or the kind of teaching focused kind of universities tend to be cheaper. Generally, they might range for the tuition starts at 8,400, and after room, board, and fees and all that such, it goes all the way up to 34K. For UCs, the tuition right now is about 14.9K, and that goes all the way to 45K after you put in room and board and also fees. And lastly, private universities go all the way up to 95K altogether. So this is like assuming in-state tuition as well. Okay. So if you're in-state, this is the typical cost that you would expect. And for out-of-state, you expect it to be a lot more. And so community college is also another option too. So to consider for community college is that it's the first 2 years. So meaning that you will finish your general education requirements first at the community college, and then you finish your last 2 years over at a four-year university. So community colleges can be an alternative way if you want to finish that first. And that's why we actually recommend a lot of high school students to take dual enrollment courses because one, it looks good for the college apps. And then second, it actually helps you finish college faster so you don't have to pay as much, right? If your student can finish in 3 years, that'll save you what, like 14K or 70K, depending on what school that you go to. And so in terms of the cost for a community college, what that looks like for the first for 1 year, it would be about $3,000. So as you can see, there's a huge difference in terms of the cost that you can actually save through the community college as opposed to going directly into a 4 year. I'm not here to talk about like the transferring process, but we'll have a later kind of training on that. So if you are curious, just let me know in the chat or in the Q&A, and be happy to like kind of do that sometime soon. But this is the kind of cost that you can expect if you go to any colleges. So when it comes to picking the colleges, right? Remember that this whole topic was about picking the right college for your major. And as you can see, there are other factors to consider as opposed to just the major itself. The cost is like one of the major factors that a lot of families are considering. And so that being said, right, the things to consider is like based off what you've seen from the difference between public universities, private universities, and community colleges is to consider like, does class size even matter? Does location matter? What kind of campus culture or student life do they want? Do they want like a to actually live on campus? Do they want to commute and just like live at home? Uh, Housing and dining as well. Do you want to experience that dorm life experience? Do you want to kind of be able to, I don't know, have late night meals, being in like those kind of college kind of lifestyles? Sorry, my cat's in the way. And then lastly, like fit and personal feel, right? This is something that maybe students need to go out to the college and kind of experience themselves to really understand if this is something that they actually like can see themselves actually going to. So after you consider all that, right, and take in consideration of the major and the cost, the next question is like, how do you actually prioritize and determine which criteria to consider? So we're going to go in deep into one of them, which is academic reputation. Okay, uh, a lot of students might say like, I want to go to this college because it is the #1 aerospace engineering program, right? Or it's the #1 computer science program. But what does that actually mean, right? Let's break it down because this also is very helpful for you to start writing in the applications. If you're going to be writing the applications and you say like, hey, I really want to go to this particular university because it's the #1 computer science program, then I would want to know as a admissions reader, what do you mean by that, right? Because rankings are arbitrary. They're all like, even though I went to UC Berkeley, #1 public university, yay, right? But like, what does that actually mean to me as an applicant? And so the kind of questions like I put on the right side, I forgot to add animations here, but the kind of exercise to always ask yourself is like, what does it actually mean and why does that actually matter to you? So for example, starting from the top right, a lot of people would say, academic reputation matters because the college sounds better on my resume. Okay, cool. Like, let's unpack that more. Why does it sound better on your resume? Because employers know that I work hard and that I am smart. Why? because the program is taught by a specific professor in the field. Okay. So if you keep on asking yourself why for this particular college being number one university, it helps you to have a better understanding of what you exactly want to learn. Okay. Because it might be the case where this particular university is really good at having internships at a local area. So, for example, a lot of people want to go to Berkeley or Stanford because it's like right located next to like Silicon Valley. And in Silicon Valley, you have more tech opportunities. So by going to those schools that's located geographically in Silicon Valley, it's going to be a lot easier to be able to get internships and get like actual work in the area, right? So the thing is, you have to like not just use the names at face value. Yes, we want you to get into the top 25 colleges, but what does the top 25 colleges actually mean to you? And what do you actually want to learn from that? So if you can ask yourself that or ask your students that, right, that will help you understand about what exact colleges should you be looking for then in this case. All right. And so let's just say that you have determined that there are a few colleges that you want to consider applying to. And so one of the ways to kind of make a decision in terms of which college to apply to at the very end, we have something called the trade-off matrix here that kind of help you determine about what might be a good fit for you. So typically, this is something that you would do after you get accepted to all your colleges because usually cost, you're not really sure about the cost yet until you actually hear back from your offer letters if you get scholarships as well. Fun fact, if you didn't know, you can get a lot of scholarships just from your application itself. You might not even have to fulfill an additional scholarship application. So if you write an amazing application, you can qualify for scholarships if they do see that you have a high potential and they want to invest into you. So this might be helpful at first if you want to try to figure out what colleges to apply to, but this is extremely helpful when you're trying to make that final decision at the very end. So here on this table, I have on the left side rows of different colleges. On the columns on the y-axis, I'm able to have like the different criteria I care about. So for example, cost, the location, the majors, the extracurriculars that's available there. And this is going to help me determine like which college that I would want to go to. So you have ratings of high, medium, low. So the goal here is to rate all the different colleges on high, medium, low on each of these criteria. So if you, for example, let's just say that I filled this out and I was able to determine all the differences between each of the colleges across these four criteria. This will help me determine what my preliminary ranking is. So in this case, right, it shows that college one is the best highest rank because I have two highs, one medium, and one low. So the question to ask yourself after this is, am I really satisfied with the rankings? Or am I really satisfied with these rankings? If not, why, right? And the way that we do this, like pragmatically, or why we rate everything low, medium, high, is because you're not honestly going to get the best college that fulfills every single desire. Okay, that's the reality of the case. If you didn't know, and if you met Coach Tony yet, right, you might have heard from his story that he went to Berkeley, even though he got offered a full ride to UCLA and UC Irvine. He turned down full rides for those two universities. Even though he would have saved so much money, he wanted to go to Berkeley, right? And that's because of other criteria that he considered. So same goes for majors, right? You don't want to just go to a school just because a major is like really good at a particular school, but it's because there are other factors that determine what your next 4 years are going to look like. And so once you kind of answer this question, if we're really satisfied or not, this helps us really understand about what really matters to us. What do we really care about out of our college education that we want to gain and learn? Okay. So next piece is that if you wanted to, you can actually get a little bit more advanced and do like a bit of a trade-off matrix where you do a lot of calculations. Okay. So this is a weighted kind of trade-off matrix. So for example, if I cared a lot more about costs, I might put a weight of 50% there, meaning that 50% of my decision making is going to go towards cost, and I'm going to spread 20% to location, 20% to majors, and 10% to extracurriculars. So if I assign values to high, medium, low, where low is 1, medium is 2, and high is 3, I'm able to calculate the weighted ranking and see that things have changed. So for example, right, instead of college one being number one now, right, college four is actually the highest ranked now because it has a higher weight on the cost right? Which matters more. So the question that I would ask myself is, am I okay accepting this college given the low rating on location and major? Accepting the trade-off is a mindset that'll help us move forward comfortably because in ways, right, we get into this issue of paralysis analysis where we spend so much time trying to make a decision because we want to make the best decision possible. But in reality, like every single decision is going to have its trade-off. You might not necessarily get the best particular major or call it like a major program that you want. But at the same time, you might be able to like save a lot in other places. So like even for me, for example, right? One of my major things was cost actually. So when I was deciding between which colleges, cost was actually my number one thing. I was raised as like a low income kid and I just did not want to take a single penny out. And because of that, I was able to get full ride for undergrad and graduate school because I only wanted to go to schools that would pay for my entire tuition. And that's the main thing is that everyone is different, right? Uh, Instead of focusing so much about like, I need to go to the top college with the best major possible, right? It wouldn't matter to me even if I did go down to a different school with the best major possible. Because if I had to take 30K, 50K, or 100K in loans, that matters more to me than going to the best college with the best major. So again, everyone's different, right? So you don't necessarily have to always choose the school with the best major kind of program because that is the criteria will differ for everyone. Every single family is different. Every single student is differently. And more importantly, the criteria that you care about, if you're a parent, I'm talking to parents, if the criteria that you care about might be different from what your kid actually cares about. And that's important to address, right? Because if your kid cares more so about the actual college experience and you're a parent worrying about the cost because you're paying for it as a parent, then obviously there's going to be a little bit of a disconnect or challenge there. So that's something to consider that don't always just bank on the major, bank on the whole, all the different types of criteria that you have to consider. All right, so we're coming down to time, and so we're going to the last bits before we go into Q&A. And so as kind of a reminder, hope this was helpful in terms of a session to kind of understand about one, how to choose your major, kind of as a quick recap, right? Is to consider using your activities, constantly use your activities as a way to activities and informational interviews as a way to determine what is it that you might want to do or what you want to consider. Remember that your major and your careers are unrelated. Whatever major you decide to join in, you'll always have an opportunity to always pivot into a different career or work in different fields or apply to any type of graduate school. And I know that because one, I taught a class about how to get into graduate school. And also, secondly, I used to work in many different fields as well. And I've seen so many of my peers who worked in many different fields who had so many different majors. And so your major does not determine about what kind of experiences you have later on after college. What your major really matters is what is your experience that you want during college? What do you want to learn? What experiences do you want to gain? And to kind of figure that out, what major to do, you have to talk to people. You have to network. You have to understand from others about what is it that you can get out of this program. And a website is going to teach you some knowledge of it about what your curriculum is, but the best way is to talk to other people. Lastly, in terms of choosing your college or choosing the right college for your major, there's a lot of different factors. Okay. So figure out your why. Why, what does it really mean to have a strong major college or strong college with a good focus in your major? Is it because of internships? Is it because of the professors? Is it because of the learning curriculum? Is it because of the specific thing that you get to do or build? And lastly, consider all the different other factors that relate to your college decision. It's not just going to be about your major. It's going to be about everything else as well. Okay. So thank you all for listening. Hope that was helpful. So in terms of kind of reminders, if you want the notes and replay, text 949-298-6234, notes and replay. So that way you can get access to this particular presentation. And also you can get the replay of this presentation as well. Okay. So again, text 949-298-6234. Please don't type it in the Zoom chat because that's not going to be able to reach us. Secondly, for juniors, if you're a class of 2026, remember that our college app intensive will start in April, which is where we will teach you how to exactly start writing your personal statements and your PIQs or personal insight questions. And so we want to make sure that you know where to start. The we are like your compass. We'll tell you what exactly that you need to do in order to get started because we read tens of thousands of applications and we know what makes a good application and a bad application. So make sure that you sign up with us at the College App Intensive. And also we'll have a accelerator workshop at the very end of summer where we'll finalize your first draft. So that way, by the time you start senior year, you're just redrafting or revising your essays. So don't write your essays blindly. Work with us because we've helped many different students. And believe me, I know many parents here who are saying, my kids are the best writers ever. Okay. And I've heard that so many times. I've heard that so many times, even from the students. I'm very confident in my writing. And then they come to us, we review their applications, and then we're striking out so many different things because there's so many fallacies, so many issues that students tend to do all the time. And also, number one thing, don't depend on your English teachers to write your essays. Or even if you're an English major or you're intended to be English major or your student is intended to be, they have the hardest time writing these essays or these applications because it's not the same as formal English writing. So if you right now, the price I believe is $1,500. So go to collegeappintensive.com if you want to register RSVP for it. If you're part of our coaching families, you should already receive the announcement about how to reserve your spot and put in security deposit. Third thing is free 15 minutes assessment. If you're new to our webinars and you haven't received a free assessment yet, this is again is where we try to just ask you a few questions to understand about where your family is and also try to give you an action plan on how to increase your college admission chances. Nothing is sold on this call. All we're trying to do is try to give you some free advice. And so please try to like take advantage of this free resource so that way we can help you so that you can plan out your high school years and make sure that you're doing the right things. And lastly, the last announcement is it shouldn't say College App Intensive, but we do have a newsletter. So every Tuesday, we send out a weekly newsletter that includes exact steps of what to do for each week for college admissions prep. And also we have some type of lesson, and we will also be posting different scholarship opportunities that we see as well. So visit collegeadmissionssecrets.co. So just imagine, take out the com or the M out of com, and you'll be able to register for that newsletter and get that in your inbox every single week. So that way we can be able to tell you about how to prep and how to prepare. Okay, and then again, these are all the kinds of things that you can text us. If text us notes, replay if you want this recording, intensive if you want to learn about the College App Intensive, coach if you want the free assessment, and news if you want that link to that newsletter. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go into Q&A. So thank you everyone for holding off to the very end. Let me bring up now the Q&A. All right, so first question. Is applying undeclared a disadvantage compared to declaring a major? This is for non-STEM social sciences, especially for upper UCs. No, it's actually not a super huge disadvantage if you're going for the non-STEM kind of majors. That's okay. I would say that you still want to ideally try to apply to any type of major if you can, ideally. So generally speaking, if you are going to be undeclared, like for example, for Berkeley, you'll be placed in the College of Letters and Sciences. And so you would want to kind of understand about how impacted it is. Again, this is kind of a more specific question that we would require to understand your kind of classes, your activities, and where your kind of application is at entirely. And then after we reviewed everything, we can let you know about like if it makes sense or not to apply into that major or not. So I feel like in a way, we kind of need more information to get a better sense of it. Will we get a recording of this presentation? Yes, totally. Make sure you type in notes and replay and text it to us. Third question, can the UCs accept a student but decline them for a major and college? For example, can Berkeley accept an applicant in general but decline for the College of Engineering? No, it wouldn't be like that. So let's say that if you submit for engineering, you'll just get reviewed by the UC Berkeley's College of Engineering, and they'll determine yes or no. So if you, again, the engineering and computer science is probably the most competitive, I would say. So if you want to optimize for like acceptances, it's possible that you might not want to apply for that particular pathway, and then you could try to apply for something else, for example. If a student is a student applying to an impacted major, engineering CS, do you recommend applying to more schools, 20 to 30 schools, etc.? Uh, yeah, so I mean, the way that we always kind of think about it, try to apply, expand your net and try to apply to many different ones. And I mean, you want to try to maximize your acceptances by trying out different majors as well. Like, for example, like a lot of people don't realize that there are some particular STEM majors or engineering or computer science related majors that have a similar uh, intersection. So, for example, like information science is new at Berkeley. And so that might be less impacted compared to like the actual computer science degree to apply to at Berkeley, for example. But you're still going to be able to learn a lot of very similar things, and you can still take classes in computer science as well. Some people don't realize that when you go to college, you can take whatever class that you want, and you don't necessarily, you might not necessarily just have the major name on your degree, which is totally fine because think about it when you apply for your jobs, they just want to know, can you actually do the job? And they want to see your projects, they want to see what you created, and that's just all done through work experience or through your class projects. So know that your major name might not necessarily matter. What are the three A's? Academics, activities, and application. Application are like the essays that you have to write, right? All right. What are your thoughts about picking a less competitive but related major? Engineering, applied math may be less competitive than CS and engineering. Yeah, that is definitely a strategy, right? And so the question comes down to what is that you want to learn? What is it that you want to gain? Something to like double check on the websites, for example, is do they have particular restrictions or requirements about what particular majors can actually take their classes? So in a lot of cases, right, the third and fourth year is where a lot of people tend to specialize. And so like this is again, you want to check with our strategist. If you're part of our family, check with our strategist about this because it could be the case where we might just want to optimize for you to get into these top competitive schools, and then you can always apply to change majors later on. So, for example, if you look on the websites for a particular school and major, you can see about what are the requirements to switch into that major. And so a lot of people might be undeclared at first, right? And they can still declare going into engineering or some other school. So that's still another possibility as well. So the way that we kind of strategize is think about where are you right now and how competitive is it for you to be able to get in? And this is all relative, meaning that if you feel like your student or you, if you're the student, are very competitive as it is in comparison to your peers, then we suggest to apply directly in. Apply directly into those engineering computer science majors because you are being compared against that group of people. If you are feeling a little bit like, oh, a little bit unconfident, I'm not really sure, it could be the case where being undeclared or being something adjacent could be a good strategy here too. All right. Any other questions? All right. I'm seeing, I think I answered everything here. 1 minute warning. All right. Okay. I see. I think that concludes all of our questions. So thank you all so much for your time. And again, text these numbers or text these words to this number if you do need any support. And looking forward to be able to see y'all next week. In terms of next week's training session, let me double check real quick. Training topics. All right. So next week on the Thursday the 13th, I'll be teaching about the 5 steps on how to start your personal project. So again, personal projects are the things that you would need to represent on your college applications to be able to showcase it and show how is it that you showed interest in investment. So thank you, everyone, and see y'all next week if you join for that particular training. Thank you.